All right, friends, welcome back to our online Bible study in the Gospel of John. This week, we're going to continue looking at a story that we started last week. So, where we left Jesus was he was mourning alongside of Mary and Martha, whose brother and one of Jesus's friends, Lazarus, had died. So, we spent last week looking at the first part of the story, and this week, we're really just in a handful of verses. I preached on them yesterday. We're going to dig into them a lot this week. There's a whole lot in just these few verses. So what I want to do today is is to make sure that we are in the right mindset for this week. To make sure that we're not skipping ahead, but we're really thinking, okay, where are Mary and Martha, the disciples, the other people who have gathered around the tomb, where are they mentally and emotionally in this moment? Because it's easy for us to skip ahead. You probably know how the story ends. If you don't, and you've done your reading for today, well, now you do. But we got to remember, they don't know how the story ends. In fact, make sure you remember this. What did Mary and Martha both say to Jesus? They both said to him, "Lord, if you had been here, my brother would not have died." And then the last thing that we read last week in verse 37, some of the people said, "Could not he who opened the eyes of the blind man have kept this man from dying?" Do Mary and Martha and whoever said that, do they sound like people who are anticipating how this story is going to end? Or do they sound like people who know that Lazarus is coming back to life? I don't think that has even entered their mind as a possibility. Think about the things that Jesus has done at this point. And you can see those things and say, wow, but why didn't they think that Jesus would raise him? Okay, what has he done? He's turned water into wine. He healed a young man, a boy, from a long way away. He healed a man who had been had some kind of disability for 38 years. He fed 5,000 people with just a little bit of food. He walked on water, and then most recently he healed a blind man. All this is awesome stuff. But again, there in 37, the fact that he has done those things does not lead the people to believe that he can do what he's about to do. They still don't get the fullness, and you can't blame them. You and I wouldn't either. They don't get the fullness of who Jesus is. Think about the famous Benjamin Franklin quote about only two things being certain. What does he say? Two things are certain in life, and only two things: death and taxes. Death is like the ultimate power over all of us in this life. It is the great equalizer. It is the thing that all of us will butt up against. It's the ultimate power in this life. Nobody hanging out at the tomb that day thinks that Jesus is going to defeat that. Nobody thinks that he is going to be able to undo that. I mean, at this point, like we talked about, Lazarus is dead. Dead. Nobody thinks that Jesus is going to undo that. So, we got 4 more days to talk about this passage. Before we get into it, that's the place that we got to have our mindset. If we want to understand this in the way that Mary and Martha and the disciples understood it, they're not just sitting around waiting for Jesus to raise Lazarus. I mean, it's not even something that they think is possible. All right, if we're looking for some way to latch onto this in our lives also, how about this? There's some kind of ultimate power in our lives that we may believe up here that God is greater than, but do we believe it here? Like that lie that just keeps moving in here. Or that insecurity that we have. Or that thing that we can't forgive ourselves of. Or that habit that we have, that addiction that we have. What is it? And here, make sure that you're dealing with stuff that like your stuff, not other people's stuff now. Your stuff. Is there something that has great power over you? That you are tempted to believe that No, 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 no. No, no, no. Like maybe up here, but you don't believe it here. Like God is greater than even that. Is there a great power that you need a God who is even greater than that? Yeah, that's a good place to be right now. For them, it was literal death. Jesus isn't greater than that. What is it for you in your life? Do you have a hard time believing that Jesus is greater than that thing? Then just sit with it this week. Just own it. Just admit it. That where Mary and Martha and the disciples were on that day at the tomb is where you are also, with maybe something in your life. It's hard for you to believe that God is greater than that thing. So just sit with that today. And we got 4 more days to really dig into these few verses. I hope you'll read them every day. Read them every day. Kind of soak them in. And let's see what God does this week. God bless you, friends. We'll see you next time.